Welcome everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be starting the first bit of ranking Encanto powers, starting with Bruno from Disney's Encanto. His power is prophecy, and essentially, before I get into it, what I'm basically going to be doing is taking each character, stating what their power is, in this case Bruno with prophecy, and then ranking it, or scoring it, I should say, out of 8 possible points total. And they will be split up between short term and long term in 4 different categories, such as everyday, military, spy, and business settings. Uh, if it would work in any of those settings in either long or short term, that is a point. And for a total of 8 points, as I mentioned earlier. I'm starting with Bruno specifically because a little while ago I saw a video that a YouTube channel made that was ranking every Encanto power, and they ranked Bruno at the bottom for some reason with his prophecy, which I think is just kind of wrong. Uh, I'm going to try to prove why I think that here by essentially ranking it out, scoring it, showing you how many points it gets out of 8, as well as over the next couple weeks doing the same exact thing for the rest of the cast, uh, or the rest of the characters from Encanto. But starting with Bruno, well, the 4 categories are everyday, military, a spy setting, and business. And I'm going to start with Bruno. However, before I rank it, we need to understand exactly how his power works. Well, not really exactly how it works, but which variation of prophecy abilities it uses, as there are some which I'll try to some there are multiple which I'll try to explain in a moment. And then I'm going to talk about the one instance that we see him using his power in the movie that would work best alongside figuring out which one is more likely to be what his ability is based off of. And then I will start ranking it based off of how well I think the variation they use specifically for him um, would fit into these situations. And I will proceed to do the rest of the characters the same exact way, same format. And to start off, I want to specify every single character in the movie has their ability is magic based, not physically based, but magic based, which is going to be important because I will mention some critiques I have with character designs based off of how things work, which I'll get to those when I get to them. But starting with Bruno, yeah, his ability is prophecy, which is an interesting one because there's a couple of variations it could be. For instance, there is they see into the future, they see exactly what's going to happen, what the outcome is going to be, what the future will become, and there isn't really much you can do to change that. That's one version that it could be. Another version is it's showing you like they see a version of the future, like the most likely path, and it gives you a small chance, but not a very big one to figure out how to change it. Another one is more of a like hints towards what the future could possibly be. Now with Bruno specifically, I feel like it is more of the second one I mentioned, where it shows you the most likely outcome, and there's a way you can change it. especially considering the fact that when we see him using his power in the movie, it shows a jumbled mess of images and events. They're all out of place, which is key because you see the ending bit before you see the solution, like the what comes before it, leading directly to the collapse of the house and the fall, like the magic extinguishing, as it were. And which this is key because it doesn't show you the correct order of events. It shows him specifically something essentially the answer you are hoping to get, if that makes sense. Because we know two actual instances that he used it. One was when Abuela asked him to look into the future to see how the magic does, and it showed him that Mirabelle was going to play a role in either saving or breaking the magic, which is important because it essentially sets for us a baseline. He sees exactly what he's trying to see. His prophecies have to have a basis. There has to be a reason he is looking for it. And simply put, we know what it is. Which brings me to the other instances of Bruno prophesying, supposedly, in the movie, with the one lady's goldfish, the guy's got the other person's balding head, and Peppa's wedding, in which we know from the movie that the wedding wasn't an actual prophecy. Bruno didn't see a prophecy. He just saw that his sister was nervous and was essentially letting her know. With the fish, you can kind of tell if someone's not treating fish well and that they're likely to die. And they can die within 1 day. Yeah, the lady's fish died the day after he told her that it looks like the fish is going to die. The guy, like, you can tell if someone's going to get a gut in how poorly they're eating. The other person, the guy who went bald, likely was showing signs of balding. And obviously, if you see signs that someone's going to go bald and you tell them that, and you have the gift of prophecy, they're going to think you prophesied it, and it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, in my opinion, I don't think the fish, the gut, the hair, or as they specifically point out, the hurricane and for the wedding, really were prophecies to begin with. Uh, I don't know how to fully explain it, but I feel like they were just him making observations about people and how they're treating things or treating themselves and pointing it out to them. Now, translating this into our score sheet, in everyday use, I think, in all honesty, I think Bruno's prophecy power would work really well for the long term for each category, whether it's everyday, military sense, spy sense, or business sense. Uh, I hmm, they could work fairly well in the short term as well, because with the long term, you see what is the most likely outcome. And if it's in the military sense, if you see in the prophecy that the other team is going to win, the enemy is going to win, you can try to figure out a way. If you see it, you can figure out a way how to prevent that future from happening. And that's the same within a spy setting, in a um, everyday setting, in a business setting. You can use it to figure out how to get the best possible outcome in a given, like, based off of the likely projection. Um, and then I I personally don't know if it would work well in short term for many of these. Maybe in business and military, but in general, like in the short term, a lot of things are just truly up to chance. Granted, in the movie, we get a great example of a short-term application in a much more everyday setting. Although you could also say it could be spy or business. The only caveat I would have to say to his abilities is the open space. It would be kind of hard to do that frequently if you need an open space often. And as such, I think it's most fitting to at least give it 4 points, and I'm leaning towards 6, because in a spy setting you could do short term before each mission to see the likelihood of it going well or wrong, and then be prepared accordingly in the mission. Um, Similar with military, however, every day there's much more out of your hands, so you wouldn't really be able to plan around it as much. And then in a business setting, why would you waste time to figure out if a investment or meeting is going to work out for you in the short term? You're more likely to use it for a long term in a business setting than a short term. It's just not logical. So I'm thinking Bruno would get a 6 out of 8, which is pretty good. It's good in the long term for every one of them, is it'll help you figure out like your likelihood of, I don't know, other like random daily things that you'd like in the long term every day, like where your life would be in who knows how many years, um, or the likely life you'd have. In a military setting, it could help you plan strategically in a specific mission or battle, as well as overall for the whole war. In a spy setting, you could do it before each mission, but also in general, like how, like use it to see how the whole covert operations are likely to proceed into the future. And then in business, I don't see you wasting time to do it in the short term, although it could be beneficial, but I don't think anyone would even consider doing that. Um, but in the long term, it would be beneficial because you can see the most likely outcome for your current business trajectory. So in total, Bruno's prophecy gets a 6 out of 8, which is pretty good. And well, on that note though, I'll let you guys have a great week, and I hope everything works out well. And enjoy the new year as well. Goodbye.